Hello, 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 hello. Sahur, kasi naman mo dyan. Hello, 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 hello. What up, though? Shit. Here we go. Man, this shit got me tripping out. It's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's a YouTube thing or what the fuck's going on. But yeah, let me show you real quick. Usually I don't start off the stream like this, but I do have to show this. Like, come on now. Here we go, here we go. Look. I don't know why my baby mama not showing up. Look, she right there, right? And it's not showing up. It's not showing up. Like, look, and I'm like, baby mama. She happened the other day too with it's not even showing up in my chat. It's weird. So yeah, I'm not trying to ignore you. So if you're still there, I'm saying hopefully you're still there. But I don't get it. Cause like it's not showing up in the regular chat. I went through the whole entire thing. So I checked the YouTube, the permissions, I know you have a wrench because it says you have a wrench. Then I checked StreamYard, you're not banned. I unbanned everybody. I took people's wrenches away and everything. I'm like, why the fuck is it not showing up? That's just crazy. And shout out to my bro, Baby King. I'm saying he was live. He was here too the other day. And like the same thing fucking happened. So I don't know how many people get fucking like shadow banned like that. Unless you unsubscribe to me. Unsubscribe, resubscribe. I mean, Tiff, I'm gonna hit you up real quick. Hold on. Let me see if I can hit you up. 1 second. But yeah. I don't know why it's not doing that. And why it's doing that. Yeah, but that shit pisses me off. Cause I don't want, you know what I mean? Like, definitely if you want to come through. I don't know why it's not showing up like that. 1 second. Wait. Did you hit me up? No, you're there. Okay. Are you live? Are you live right now? Hey. Hey. There you go. I just hit you up. But yeah. You should be showing up. Like, if you're in the chat, you should be showing up. So you do show up in StreamYard, but not on YouTube. Which is weird. But yeah, I definitely gotta get back to doing some VR. Maybe we'll do some right now in a little bit. Give me 1 second. Let me just sort this shit out. But yeah. Let's get it. Let's get it on the pop. I said, okay. I see it now. See it now. Tiff. Tiff. Why did you delete your comment? Was that why? Shouts to Tiffany. What's good? How you doing? Yeah, my bad. I don't know why I kept on doing that. Like when he show up. But yeah, he there now. That's all good. That's what matters. How are you? Oh, baby mama. I'm charging on my headset. So we'll see if we can do some VR. Some VR chat. Let's do some VR chat too. I haven't done it in a long time. I need to get my need to get back to doing that shit too. Yeah. But yeah, what's going on in the world today? How are you? Hey. There you go. So see you. Oh shit. Oh. There you go. Say something. Let me know you're there. But good. Oh shit. There's a few things that they want to see. That they want to talk about. Well, we've been talking about some crazy shit lately. What the fuck is going on in the world today? Let's see this shit. 1 second. Oh yeah. So I did see this, right? We were talking about certain things like this the other day.
Check this out.
Wow. Show it. Pop. Boom. There you go.
Check this out. This is more of a language than a picture. This language is the language of vibration. When you see the vibration, you see it has a pattern that gets reflected in nature. This gets crazy. The patterns get complex. They get so complex, in fact, they can work together to create something as complex as you. What you normally think of as a vibration can be read in terms of circles, and it's so much easier. By converting it into a circle, you can convert it into shapes instead of just that waveform. Look at our cymatic up here. When you look closer, that sound wave is shaping that picture just by the interaction of the circles. It's called interference. The blue and the green wave over here are creating that red wave. You're essentially seeing this red wave in the picture. The sound wave bends the water bends the light creates contrast that you can see the shape with. This cymatic is that pattern. For this thing to move, we need the same pattern we used before, but we need two of them in opposing directions. This creates the balance and harmony and geometry. That same pattern can be seen in magnetic fields. You look close, you'll see the same shape we saw in the water. Sound waves and magnetic fields are harmonic. The bridge we use to understand that is geometry. If you draw a line between the center of all of those circles, you get a shape called Metatron's cube. That shape contains the only 5 ways to perfectly divide a sphere. You can think of these as the first 3D harmonic shapes. Why would you care? Well, if you're...
Yeah. So yeah, so if we only see them in 2-dimensional, there's 3-dimensional, and then probably four dimensions.
That shape contains the only 5 ways to perfectly divide a sphere. You can think of these as the first 3D harmonic shapes. Why would you care? Well, if you're an atom, this is how you pack the proton and the neutron into the nucleus of the atom. Take the dodecahedron, for example. It has 12 faces. If you have 6 protons and 6 neutrons like carbon, this is the most efficient way to pack them all inside of one sphere. Life couldn't even exist without carbon, and now you know your first word in the new language. Intelligence is being able to recognize patterns. The unseen world of circles and vibration gets translated into the rational world of form by you. If this was taught in schools, we would not have an education problem. This is cymatics and the study of sonic geometry. In simple terms, it's measuring the shapes that form on water when sound goes through it. Let me show you what it can do. These are concentric circular patterns. It's like a ripple in a pond. And Kepler used it to get a pretty accurate...
No, this is not live. This is a recording of a live that is maybe in the future. Might be live, but yeah, it's not live. No, Marty McFizzle, this is not live. Yeah, it's not. No, I'm not here. No, it's not. I'm not here. Yeah, this is just the ghost of re-recorded. You recognize patterns? Okay, here we go.
Measurement of the orbits of the planets. It's one of the most basic ways to view a wave or a vibration. Spiral cymatics usually mean that energy is flowing. Just remember, if you flow.
Okay, what is this? This you see the little thing on the bottom, the little circular thing. I forgot what it's called. From the founding of America until the first day of this year, 26th. What? Okay. Marty McFizzle. Okay, I don't know who you are. You're welcome to join the panel as long as you're respectful. But you see that little pattern? What's that little? It looks like a, what the fuck is it called? Can you hear me? I'm pretty sure you can hear me. Hold on. Don't troll me, bruh. What's this? Yeah, you can hear me. I know you can. Because I can hear myself here.
Spiral cymatics usually mean that energy is flowing.
What is this? Right on the bottom, underneath where the triangle is at. What the fuck is it called? That right there. You see where my cursor is at? The panels need more orthodox. Okay, cool. Then just sit in the chat. You know what I'm saying? If you have any questions, I will answer your questions if I can. Okay. You'll comment? Okay, here we go.
When there's a big difference in amplitude, or the positive and negative part of a wave, it creates this pocket, which you can see a lot in fruit, but we can also see it in the notes of the piano, the THC molecule, hydrogen molecule, and the Schumann resonance. If you see a linear cymatic, it has a lot of spokes, and these are generally used for communication. If you saw the pufferfish video, that's how they communicate. It transmits a lot of data. Cathedrals also use them. These are cellular cymatics. They're used a lot in architecture and for storing things. They create standing waves that you can trap things in. It's very efficient when you need space, or if you're going to space.
Oh, you can see my face. I'm saying, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have. There's videos of me. You can see them in my channel. You know, go to my channel. There's videos. You can see my posts. There's videos, images, whatever.
Like the James Webb Space Telescope. The particle collider has an almost perfect cymatic ratio.
Yep.
This outer layer being nodal and
the Hadron Collider, I think that's what it is. The CERN kind of does that. So I think that it also emits these kind of wave patterns when it uses its energy. So it does most likely, but we probably can't even see them, right? Yeah. Here we go.
Telescope. The particle collider has an almost perfect cymatic.
You're back. I'm driving to my place right now. Okay. Come on, mama. Baby mama, my baby mama. I see back.
Ratio. This outer layer being nodal and that inner layer being linear. You see this geometry a lot in the Vedic or Hindu culture. We're masters of vibration and sonic geometry, which is why there's a Shiva statue outside of CERN. This geometry.
Okay. So yeah, we have seen those. So when I did DMT, these are the panels that I did see. Pause. You know what I'm saying? Sorry. Bars.
It also explains proportion, which is why the Florence Cathedral dome follows this ratio to explain creation, which is also how mathematics explains creation, as well as the spiritual traditions with the flower of life. So just in a minute and a half, we have covered cosmology, physics, mathematics, quantum science, biology, geometry, and architecture. We could also use it to explain how the ancients explained reality or reincarnation. The earliest forms of life.
Here we go. If you guys believe in reincarnation, some of you may or may not. But yeah, I've never seen this before. The Mayan calendar, it does make sense. So it's overlaid when they use the cymatic patterns. You overlay it to the Mayan calendar. Wow, I've never seen that before, right? It does, like all of these geometric patterns kind of make sense, right?
We could also use it to explain how the ancients explained reality or reincarnation. The earliest forms of life are cymatic patterns.
Yeah, be safe. Drive safely, please. Don't hurt nobody.
And your DNA uses it to expand and contract for gene expression. You could explain music theory or pretty much anything else that you can see with it. The images you're about to see.
That is trippy. Look at the eyes too. If you look at the eyes, they have kind of the same thing.
You could explain music theory or pretty much anything else.
That right there, right? No eye is the same, if I'm not mistaken.
Else that you can see with it. The images you're about to see were created using only light and sound. It's like a picture book of life created with vibrational geometry, and it's called cymatics. It's the study of the shape of sound. The earliest forms of life that we know reflect the earliest frequencies on the planet. Everything we thought was a random pattern isn't really random at all. Humans took note of these frequencies, and then we materialized.
Yeah, I remember seeing this a long time ago. When they would put like frequencies, certain sound waves, and they created these patterns. They use like song on top of a speaker.
Really random at all. Humans took note of these.
There it goes right there.
These frequencies, and then we materialized their meaning. These pictures are worth 1,000 words, but these frequencies appear to have provided an infinite amount of feeling. We encoded the patterns since the beginning of civilization. They're like bookmarks in art connecting the seen with the unseen. It was a tangible connection to a previously invisible world. Those shapes became symbols that reflected the entire beliefs of certain cultures and societies. These patterns are the proof for how connected everything actually is. Most people don't even know how significant it is. The Renaissance pulled us out of the Dark Ages by reviving these ancient lessons. The few that knew the secrets created art so good that we couldn't look away. The explanation of why these things are such great pieces of art never really gets explained in school. We can look at all of these as separate, and culturally they are, but in
Look, Judaism, Semitic glyph, right? You see them. They've always been there before.
reality, we're all talking about the exact same thing. There is no division. Words are limited. They can get lost and misinterpreted. The only thing we feel is sound. When you resonate, you belong. You feel accepted. The only way to break that connection is to manufacture division. This is your DNA. When you view it from the top down, you can see the molecular bonds that make this mandala. It's a fractal antenna interacting with the environment, bridging the etheric with the material.
Okay, so with National Library of Medicine, right? DNA is a fractal antenna into an electromagnetic field.
Mandala. It's a fractal antenna interacting with the environment, bridging the etheric with the material. The harmonic patterns you see in the environment are a reflection of the resonance with you. Those bonds show you the link, but the atoms can show you the little pieces. This species has created a technology that can explore these things on the smallest level. If all this is entangled, then harming anybody in the planetary family is actually harming ourselves. 2,000 years into the common era, and we're just now figuring out there's nothing new under the sun. But you're in it, you're a part of it, the universe, the one song. It's huge, it's incredible. Show somebody you care about how beautiful it is to share this little soundtrack with them. Seriously, out of all the mind-numbing content.
Yeah, sound waves, the motion of the ocean, you know what I'm saying? Gotta have a little rhythm in your thrust.
On here, share the magic of being here with them for 1 minute. You really do not know who may need to hear it today. Or maybe you don't want to be in this orchestra without that special person. Whatever it is, without your piece, this symphony wouldn't be perfect. You're in the U inverse for a reason. First law of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So you've been here. Everything that is couldn't.
There goes. First law of thermodynamics. The first law of thermodynamics states that the energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be converted from one form to another. The first law is used to categorize the performance of cyclic conversion systems like fossil-fired steam power cycles of geothermal cycles.
Be everything without you. I'm gonna say it. I think we're getting stupider. In this 500-year-old cathedral, on the ceiling is one of the craziest things that you will ever see.
Yep. Yeah, that. Look at this is usually how your DNA looks like. What it would look like if it was a 3D. So we only see it in one dimension or a flat dimension, right? A flat plane. Just like a helix. But it's not. It's 3D. It's still three-dimensional, right?
This is the Rosslyn Chapel. It's in Scotland. Some of the crispiest stonework you're ever going to see, but these are really the point of interest. You may recognize the...
And those, you see those patterns? The little hooves and things like that? Those are, I forgot what it's called. We talked about this the other day. You see in the, I I
the
forgot what it's
upside
called.
down
We'll find it.
spires from Hindu temples. That is because they're communicating the same thing across the world. The speaker cone design of the ceiling is reinforced by the waveform pillars that sits on. At the top of the pillars in Rosslyn, there are angels playing instruments. Now, as you follow the pillar up, you'll see the little nubs. Each one of those is a cube, and on each one of those cubes is a folded up cymatic pattern. As you go up the archway, those cubes form notes and chords. This was discovered by a Royal Air Force codebreaker, Thomas Mitchell. Him and his son decoded this, translated it into music, and recreated a 500-year-old song. We really don't see attention to detail like this any longer. That's because when the church was bankrolling these things, the alchemists and masons built them. But since very few people were educated, they spoke a language of sacred geometry. This way they could communicate in secret and use the building itself as the repository of their knowledge. We're still decoding these things.
We don't know the meaning of all the carvings. It's an interpretive view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I gotta look up this video. So he's showing a whole bunch of information right here. So we can look up this video, Secret Scotland with Susan Coleman. I want to see this. Let's see if we can find this one. Okay. Let's you break down each. Because like he's skimming through this, and this is a good video. It's gonna be on for a while now. So Secret Scotland. Scotland. So they come. Oh, it pops up right away. Kind of understands that. Okay, here we go.
We're looking at it from today.
Rosslyn was actually an inspiration for the Da Vinci Code and was used in the book and movie. Once you start learning about the techniques they used in the building too, it will blow your mind. They're genius. Ancient India, they viewed stars as gateways to essentially download higher conscious information. I know, I thought it was crazy too, but hear me out. This might change your mind. If you use frequency with light, you combine the two, you could essentially create a star map with shorthand icons using light and how it connects to create a map. Our internet works on light, and things like Stonehenge use very basic methods to achieve incredible precision. But this is why India is so interesting. So I talk about these ceiling features all the time because they look like a freaking particle collider. But there's these little floral decorations that get overshadowed by the big guys. These sent me down the rabbit hole. Because out of all the ways you could draw or carve a flower, they picked ones that matched up with cymatic patterns every time. Not even kidding. Every one that I've looked at matches up with a cymatic pattern perfectly. But how do they link up with the stars? And this is actually the most obvious part. There's a temple. I'm not going to say it because I'm going to butcher that. But it has the lunar stations and the zodiac carved on the ceiling. Each one of these patterns is unique and represents a constellation in their zodiac. Now, all temples from India to cathedrals use light and the manipulation of it to track alignment. Same in Egypt. Same at Stonehenge. A seasonal calendar tracking a very far off star does not make sense. But ships do, to get to specific destinations here in the water, which is exactly how they described it in the Vedic tradition. In the Mayamata, these patterns fix the energy to the building. In the Shastras, they say this is the unfolding of the cosmos. So you allow that light to come through calculated openings in the temple. Then unfold the light using a cymatic pattern that matches up with the light's frequency. Through the water, you unfold the stars pattern with cymatics, make a map of the Vedic internet system. That's magic. I hope you're ready for what we are about to see, because that is...
Hey, motherfuckers, right here now. Yeah, this is crazy. Okay, so let's look at the secrets of what they were saying. So the Rosslyn Chapel, right? It's just one, right? It basically was built using that. So you would see the patterns. So let's see this, because we're gonna break through this one too.
A building is just a building until it becomes part of a story, and the story becomes part of a legend. That's what happened to Rosslyn Chapel, located just 7 miles southeast of Edinburgh, Scotland. The chapel was founded in 1446 by Sir William Sinclair as a Roman Catholic collegiate church, meaning it was self-governing, with financial support coming from the Sinclair family. What really made Rosalind Chapel famous was the 2003 publication of Dan Brown's best-selling mystery novel, The Da Vinci Code. This was followed by the huge box office success of the movie version in 2006, starring Tom Hanks. Rosalind Chapel now welcomes about 140,000 visitors each year. It's an easy, inexpensive public bus ride from the heart of Edinburgh. The number 22 bus takes you to the village
Those Scottish people, right?
of Rosslyn, just a short walk from the chapel. Indoor photography is not permitted, but published images and outdoor photography give you an idea of the intricate masonry and carving that first made it.
There he goes. Look at, but that was the thing. They were building buildings way different. That's amazing.
Famous. The chapel we see today took about 40 years to complete, but it's less than half the size that was planned by Sir William. He died in 1484, and his heirs apparently decided it was big enough. A little over 100 years after the chapel was completed, the Protestant Reformation swept over Scotland. The Sinclairs were warned to close the chapel or risk losing their land and possibly their lives. They complied. The chapel sat abandoned and neglected for almost 150 years. At one point during the English Civil War, Oliver Cromwell stabled horses in the chapel. In 1660, the old Rosslyn Inn opened next door. It attracted artists, writers, aristocrats, and royals. The great Scottish writer Sir Walter Scott campaigned to restore the chapel as part of an effort to build national pride and identity. The first major renovation began in 1837. The legend that attracted Dan Brown was the possible link between the chapel and a religious order of warrior knights called the Knights Templar. They provided protection to pilgrims who flocked to the Holy Land after the Crusades. In the process, they became very rich and very powerful. They built a fort on top.
That's also something. Also, that's the.
They became very rich and very powerful.
No,
They built a fort on top of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. When the Crusaders were driven out of the Holy Land, they returned to Europe. French King Philip convinced the Pope to disband the Templars. Eventually, there were mass arrests and executions, but some got away and may have been able to take some of the Templar treasure and holy relics collected in Jerusalem, most notably the Holy Grail, the cup Jesus used at the Last Supper, with them. Many believe the Templars became Masons and created the Order of Freemasonry, and that the Masons who built Rosslyn Chapel did so with the idea of making it a sacred place to house the Grail and other sacred objects. Is that real history or just a good story? Whatever people believe, it's bringing them back to Rosslyn.
Where are these? Where did they get these thoughts from? Right. Hold on. Here we go. I wasn't prepared for that.
You walk past these every single day.
So yeah, we're gonna continue with this one, right? Ooh. There we go.
It's a simulation of this. And this is what happens when sound goes through something, usually a metal plate, and you put sand on top of it to see how it looks. The top video is a simulation of this machine, which looks like this. If you know the material and you know the frequency, you can calculate what these patterns will look like using this complex differential equation. But you don't have to know that anymore because we now have this way of simulating it, which looks like a piece of paper if you go like this. I have to demystify what's going on here before I tell you how it's going to change the world. So when the sound goes through the material, the red line there is the standing wave, or the blue line in the simulation. And the waves are perfectly opposite. They can't. It's going to change the world. So when the sound goes through the material, The red line there is the standing wave, or the blue line in the simulation. When the waves are perfectly opposite, they cancel each other out, creating chaos in the sand. When they line up perfectly, they sum together, creating ordered geometry within the sand. Here's where it gets really wild. All matter, everything you see, has a frequency down to the atomic level. Frequency manipulates matter. This is what's happening up here. If you think it's a frame rate issue, here's a slow-mo video of the same phenomenon. If we know the frequency of a water molecule, we can get it to change shape depending on the harmonics. This is not only a fluid phenomenon. You can do this with solids as well. This is glass in a car with a subwoofer. Even the metal is warping. If you know the frequency of a rock, then you can use a tube of metal to literally shake a hole in the rock like a drill. Too small of a frequency is not going to do anything. Too large is just going to shake the rock. But shaking that rock could be very useful. If we shake the rock hard enough, then we can move the rock with very little effort. This guy used just subwoofer frequencies to reduce the weight of that 175-pound sled by 5 times, meaning anyone could push that sled with just one finger. The sonic geometry of cancer cells was discovered 10 years ago, giving us the ability to shatter them with sound.
Yeah, I did see a video how they were like killing cancer cells using sounds and frequencies.
You're going to see in the simulation that as we go up in frequency, the geometry gets more complex, and as it shifts and adds more nodes, we get these very cool patterns. To some people, these patterns are going to look very familiar. That's because your ancestors knew about this. We're just rediscovering it. What you're looking at right there is that frozen in a crystal. It is a 3D hologram of sound. A laser burns each frame of this into the crystal, and how the light reflects off those burn marks makes a 3D hologram that you see. But what do you see? Each one of these patterns means something different to each person. Some of us see the patterns of life. If you're a pufferfish, maybe you see the pattern of love. Maybe you see God in whatever way that might be.
Well, that would be it, right? You would see that if you see the pattern, you would see that there's something. There is a matrix, a system, right? Like you could see it in flowers, you could see it in fruits, you could see it in all different types of things. You would see this pattern.
Maybe the geometry connects you to a deeper part of your culture. Maybe it just connects you to geometry. But deep down, you know there is a connection, because that's how we are all connected to this place. Your experience here is the crystallization of a holographic universe, the you inverse. Each person's record of life is a temporal bookmark in the whole thing. You're a fractal neuron in time. Without you, we can't make the whole picture. And without me, you can't make your whole picture. You choose to see reality at the angle it's reflected back at you. If you move around a little bit, you can see that art and architecture is how we decorate space, and sound is how we decorate time. You exist in both. You're literally how the universe decorates itself. Bubble cymatics. Probably going to want to sit down for this, because you're looking at a 4-dimensional hologram. Watch this. When you blow a bubble on a speaker, the light that's shining on the speaker gets reflected in a pattern that reflects the frequency. The sound traveling through the speaker and the bubble warps the bubble into a shape of the sound. You'll see in this one that it's mixing up the fluid as well. Different frequencies.
What's up, bro? Yo, bro, you been watching the fucking news, bro? They fucking struck a nuclear plant, bro. It's leaking fucking nuclear shit, bro. Fucking Poland, bro. Poland, bro. Poland is about to like... Money? Not fucking with you, bro. Not get it. No, bro. The real subject is, bro, everybody's going wild, bro. This fucking Shakur Stevenson signed to Sufa. You fucking found that shit out? That's fucking gay, dude. Now he can fucking fight Conor Ben. Yeah, Shocking Foster, yeah. With Ford? Raymond Ford, yeah. Oh, I know who the fuck you're talking about. That has cornrows, right? Santillana or what? Oh, bro. Oh, Oscar Duarte, bro. Oh, Richards and Hitchens. Yeah, bro. These fuckers are fucking dodging all the smoke, bro. Yeah, bro. And you know what? And everybody's going wild. Like fucking David Navies is acting like a bitch, bro. He fucking ducked everybody. Yo, bro. Fucking Black and Brown is live, bro. Bro, stream his fucking thing, bro. Stream his channel and let's cook on whatever the fuck he's saying, bro. Stream it, bro. It's Black and Brown. He won't fucking. You just go like click on his channel and stream it, bro, while we cook on it, bro. Yeah, bro. He's arguing with Barrage, I think, bro.
Has never been the man in a division. He's never fought the number one guy in a
Nah,
division.
it's not about joining his channel, bro. It's about you streaming his channel, bro. Here. Why, bro? Fuck it, bro. Keep the audience. Bring the audience here. Bro, T, we was learning frequencies, man. You fucked it up cooking. Ah, fuck it. TY loves Chomo. What? TY loves Chon Chon. These fucking names are wild, bro. Yeah, no, keep cooking, bro. When you're gonna talk boxing, I'll be back, bro. All right.
Different patterns. If you know the correct frequency, you can control the pattern. This is very important because these patterns control things like the currents in the oceans. Liquids and gases allow us to see the movement of energy going through them. With bubble cymatics, we can better understand and make them, even shaping them into 4D objects like the torus. So what is 4D? 4D just means that you cannot perceive the shape unless the shape is moving. Otherwise, it looks like a bent, twisted 3D shape. Sound travels through a wire, hits the speaker, and then the speaker projects that pattern through the air. It's literally flying math. That's what you're seeing right there. Those images are a projection of that geometry, like a shadow of a very complex object. That is what you see in the patterns. That pattern right there is literally a slice through a bubble traveling through the air. It's frozen frequency. You're actually probably very aware of what dimensions are. 1 is a point, 2 is a line, 3 is depth. If you keep expanding, you progress in complexity. If you rotate that object, you get its dimensional symmetry. So we expand the dimension and then we rotate it to look straight down it. This way we can see the pattern of that dimension. Right here, we're just making higher dimensional cubes, which can be reduced back to a point. A 10 cube is called a decorect. In the shape, the can be reduced back to a point. A 10 cube is called a decorect. In the shape, the points are corners and the lines are edges. If we overlay that on the cymatic, we see the geometry of the frequency. That cymatic has 10 folds, 10 slices of that pizza. The corners and edges of that 10 cube bend the light into that pattern. Some of the corners and edges reflect, some of them cast shadows. Some of them reflect into shapes like that. Who cares? Seeing this is like seeing through the veil, the illusion of the dimension that you're in. Recognizing these patterns allows you to see how your brain is building the hologram frame by frame. You're just reading frequencies. Space Station just did a cymatics experiment and it's wild. Just as wild as the water ones, the bubble ones, in all forms. The Chladni plates, the CGI ones, and the oscilloscope cymatic. They're all sick, but this one blows them all away. Why? Because this is what I've been trying to explain the whole time. This is how sound actually looks. It's a bubble. So the gold thing is a speaker with an air bubble with water around it. Sound goes through it, that's how you see it, and we can calculate it with equations and stuff. We have to see cymatics on Earth like this because of the gravity thing. But it allows us to look at the geometry of the frequency. Every frequency has its own geometry. More harmony equals more symmetry. Particle colliders explore the smallest vibrations. By mapping these tiny little particles, we can see that they also have a geometry. Particles of the same shape or geometry resonate with other particles that are like them. These form groups of atomic elements. Within a container, the resonance brings these atoms together. Vibrations that fit perfectly inside a bigger vibration are called harmonics. Elements in harmony can vibrate together to form these little biological machines. Billions of these inside of you doing all kinds of things to keep you alive. More harmonics equals more organization of matter into more complex systems. This is a starfish egg. When it gets fertilized, it emits a frequency that sends a signal to all the cells inside of it. That overtone is the signal to divide. That frequency can organize a cell and then it can divide it. Geometry is just dividing a space. Like controlling an RC car, that signal gets read and interpreted by the car and the car does stuff. But there's more. This is ferrofluid. Microscopic iron flakes in a fluid, kind of like your blood. When an electromagnetic current is passed through it at a specific frequency, it can organize itself. Within a confined space, it can connect an entire system together, kind of like your nervous system. Now you can connect systems together into an even more complex organism that is controlled by a mind. Interestingly enough, the brain emits signals in these subsonic to sonic ranges. Same frequency we see in the space cymatic here. Made sense to you, it's your brain reading the QR code of the geometry, translating that into a frequency and understanding it on a vibrational level. Human cells can now be reprogrammed using only sound. We've been using ultrasound to quite literally shatter tumor cells for a while now. If you think of an opera singer shattering a wine glass with their voice, it's the same concept, it's just with cells. These techniques have been used to reduce the size of tumors and shatter cancer cells like leukemia. This research is called sonogenetics, and it can be used to quite literally turn on and off genes. This can be used to treat weight tumors and shatter cancer cells like leukemia. This research is called sonogenetics. And it can be used to quite literally turn on and off genes.
In 2015, neuroscientist Srikanth Chalasani and his team at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies introduced to the world sonogenics, a groundbreaking technique that uses ultrasound to control cellular activity. Seeking an alternative to optogenics, which relies on light but struggles to penetrate deep tissues, Chalasani envisioned using sound waves as a non-invasive solution to precisely manipulate cells in living organisms. The breakthrough came through experiments with a small nematode worm widely used in biological research due to its simple nervous system. The team genetically modified the worms to express TRP4, a mechanosensitive ion channel that responds to mechanical stimuli like sound waves. Using ultrasound waves at around 40 megahertz, they successfully activated specific neurons, triggering controlled behavioral responses such as directional movement. Sonogenics works by introducing genes that encode ultrasound-sensitive proteins into target cells. When exposed to ultrasound, these proteins, usually ion channels, alter their structure, and this allows ions like calcium or sodium to flow in or out of a cell. This change can activate or suppress cellular functions. Unlike light, ultrasound waves can penetrate into deep tissues, reaching organs.
This can be used to treat way different things like Parkinson's or even blindness. Everything has a frequency, even cells. Now the outside of the cell, think of that like a water droplet on a speaker. Different frequencies can make it dance or change shape. Say you want to target something inside the cell, you would need to then know the harmonics. In this example, paint, oil, and water are all mixed. Different frequencies will vibrate the different fluids. You know those frequencies, it allows you to pretty much control them. We have devices like the CymaScope that can measure these frequencies and then show you what they look like. So my question is, were the builders of these aware of this before we were? Nobody knows who really designed them, but we know they had a deep knowledge of acoustics. In every cathedral, there's an ambulatory. That has the same geometry as a cavity resonator. In the center of that resonator is an interference pattern, same thing we see in cymatics. You make those by playing a frequency through a speaker and you get a pattern. To find the resonance of a building, you record the silence of that building and then amplify it to get the sound. Here's the weird part. Those patterns match the patterns that we see all over the building. If you think those patterns match the patterns that we see all over the building. If you think it's a coincidence, understand that DNA also makes these patterns. When you look at the molecular bonds of DNA from the top down, they form radial harmonic patterns. If this research discovers that harmonic patterns harmonize our genes, maybe our care facilities will start to look more like that than this, which is a win for everyone. What you're about to see is a device that can show you the vibration or the resonant qualities of anything from cells to fruits to the most basic forms of life. The inventor, Mr. Reed, just did an experiment on blood cells, and I want to share his results.
Every type of music that we experimented with created a fabulous result. The red blood cells that were counted in the musical environment were always many times more than they were in the quiet environment.
It gets way crazier, but you need to know what the sound of the heart actually does to your blood, and I'm gonna let him explain that.
Every time there's a heartbeat, that's actually a low frequency pulse of sound. It's very low frequency sound. And that sound is a mechanical pressure that causes the binding of the oxygen to the hemoglobin.
Now DNA shares the same molecular shape as its frequency shape. Fractal Resonance could be the key to genetics in general. Let me explain. This cymatic is a perfect fifth. It has 5-fold symmetry. If you freeze it at the highest amplitude, you see the 5-pointed star. Let it go through a full cycle and freeze it at the lowest amplitude, it inverts the star. Cymatic images are a composition of those two images, creating something like this. If you look at the molecular arrangement of DNA molecules, it aligns with the perfect fifth in music. If you didn't understand that, do not worry. DNA has a dodecahedral structure. Kind of hard to make out when it's tightly coiled. The dodecahedron is made up of pentagons. When you look at it from the right perspective, the bond angles of DNA align with the corners and edges of the dodecahedron. When you stack dodecahedrons, it creates a helical stack around the outside edges. When you fractalize a dodecahedron, you retain the same shape but you increase the surface area by adding more dodecahedrons. Using frequency, you would have a perfect fifth with fractal harmonics. The geometry of sound is shared by every tradition and links all of humanity. I've been reflecting this for centuries, and now it appears to be some sort of hidden code. When something sounds good, an artist will generally feel that. When you're that dialed in, you can see the feeling. If you are not, do not worry. Those keys are being played at the same time. Those are the waves. Imagine a guitar string. This is the wave created by all three. It's called a standing wave. And here's the red wave, or the combination of the blue and the green wave. That combined wave creates pattern. That one's called a cladding pattern, and you can make it with a piece of metal on a speaker. When you put sand on the metal plate, the sand falls into the valleys created by the wave. Those patterns are vital. When you simulate the pattern, you can see how it looks like a piece of paper if you're flopping it with your finger. Smart people figured out the equations, and now we can make cool 3D renders of cladding figures. And those are heart cells. Acoustic bioengineering can manipulate heart cells into patterns. Those patterns can mimic the ones in heart tissue and blood vessels. So sound can literally heal your broken heart. I don't think it was that big of a secret. Ancient floor tiles from Greece and Rome mimic cymatic patterns. Nordic runes mimic cymatic patterns. I haven't paid attention to the patterns that are everywhere. When you feel good, it's just shapes lining up. There was a study done on people who attend music festivals, being called a lifeline for mental health. If you're an artist going into 2025, whether that's a doctor or a musician or anything, take your fucking swing. You could have an ear for it. You could have an eye for it. You realize how connected it is, all of it, how easy it is to understand. You could be depriving the world of something amazing if you don't. You ready for this? You're not ready for this because I wasn't ready for this. This is a normal water cymatic like this guy here, but do you see what shape it's making? The frequency is making a moving double helix. No, this is way more interesting than you think. You can make the molecular bond symmetry with a cymatic pattern. The geometry of a frequency can organize matter like the oil in the water here. So every type of DNA can be expressed using a cymatic glyph. So you can clearly see where the oil sits in those little nodes there. If you look closer, you'll see the lines that trace the cymatic pattern. They're created by these LEDs that are fixed to the end of a camera when they take the picture. You see the light bending over the pattern of the water, but if you change the color of the LEDs, the frequency literally weaves the light together into the entire pattern. This is crazy because researchers have acoustically shaped DNA to create programmable materials. All they used was piezoelectricity and sound. Scale that up to a cell. If you read the resonance of a cell using a cymoscope, its health is determined by its symmetry. If something's wrong, the shapes are off. Plants. Not only do flowers mirror cymatic patterns, Gene expression and water are two of the biggest factors in the symmetry of the flower. There's a ton of research on music and frequency affecting plant growth. And as you can see here, the water carries the frequency. Craziest thing about this whole video, go to the description of this video. It says that frequency is 520.
Five to eight, trying to get stability. Five to eight, trying to get stability.
Hertz. That's the same frequency in this experiment. It's like the biology is crystallizing the form of the cymatic in matter, and depending on how well the DNA resonates will determine how perfect the form is expressed. Research on this is still in its infancy, obviously. Would that not be the most insane thing ever, to simulate a pattern and then see how it's expressed in a turtle shell or in a cheetah's fur? Could we change it? Is the reason why we see these patterns so much in ancient architecture because their science developed along this type of a path. When you slice fruits or vegetables the right way, they make the same shapes that sound makes. That is a pattern you'll see if you put a dish of water on a speaker. The same pattern you see in that melon can be recreated with a vibration at around 12 hertz. So if that frequency makes the shape, can we reverse the shape to get the frequency? Kind of. That one's split into fours because the wave goes up and down 4 times in one cycle. Put the ends of the wave together, then you have your circular radial harmonics that you see in the water. That one would be 5, and that one would be 6. If you put drops of oil in the water, that pattern will organize the oil drops. With the right frequency, you can replicate the same pattern that DNA makes when viewed from the top down. And if you put it in the freezer while it's making these patterns, you can freeze the shape. So here's my question. Does this little seed have the code to freeze watermelon.mp3 in reality? China's actually researching this to increase crop yields, up to 30% more in some cases. This one found a frequency that could increase the rate of photosynthesis in plants. Let's go deep for a second though. Almost every single ancient culture had beings that came and gave the gifts of civilization and agriculture. Here's the thing. You go to enough of these places, you start to see flowers everywhere. Instead of decorations that were inspired by nature, could they instead be details on how to replicate these things using the language of sonic geometry? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I am sorry, but this is an obsession of mine. Vibration is the same whether it's electromagnetics or sound. They're intricately linked. The geometric connection between life and them is what I will be focusing on this year. This and this are exactly the same thing. Humans have been downloading information for thousands of years, and I will show you. This is a scene from The Matrix where Neo literally downloads Kung Fu into his brain. And what this is the pattern of water as sound is played through it. It's called cymatics, and all it is circles. Sound draws geometry using circles that we read as waves, but they are actually circles. That frequency creates a pattern that can be translated into math. The shape is an icon or a shorthand for the information, and more. In the geometry are ratios, like the golden ratio, that are used in the real world. It doesn't even have to be that complex. The ratio within two circles gives you 3 universal constants, all in ratios. Long ago, these were put into buildings like cathedrals. You'll see the ratio of those 2 circles in every doorway, and even more complex geometry in the rose windows. But instead of being wirely plugged in, this is transmitted through resonance. Frequency carries information, but only if the geometry matches. That's how antennas work. But what I'm talking about is not like downloading a PDF from the internet. Your brain has unique experiences from the moment you were born. Thoughts and emotions together make a memory. Music taps into emotion, but what if you've never seen those things? Then, and under the right ritual conditions, your personal experiences mesh with the fabric of the underlying code. So the temple, in essence, is a geometric database accessed through your mind using sonic keys. As a data packet, in reality, you no longer have access to that. A lack of understanding plugs you back into the matrix. Nothing to see here. The old ways take you out through experience and show you what's possible. The largest cymatics lab on Earth has been built in China, and it may be the coolest thing I've ever seen. Individual actuators on the side push the water to create any shape that they want. The place is called NMRI. It's a research institute for sea travel. Essentially, it's double bouncing the surface of the water to create peaks and valleys that can form the shapes. But the science goes way deeper than the tank of water here. Same patterns can be created with a petri dish on a speaker. The concept is called scale invariance, where things like wave phenomena can be experienced at any scale in the universe. When waves interfere with each other, they create an interference pattern. That's the same geometry you see in everything from magnetism to the quantum world. If we look very closely at the quantum patterns, you'll see that they overlap with cymatic patterns perfectly. The only difference is the perspective at which you're observing the phenomenon. In the ancient world, this was sacred geometry. Many spiritual icons have a corresponding acoustic geometry. You can encode a chant or prayer, feeling, and stone by just observing the natural world that produced it. And way before we referred to our reality as a hologram, they referred to it as an illusion. We are just one slice of a multi-dimensional spectrum of overlaid interference patterns, some of which organize matter in such a way it creates an antenna for consciousness to tune into. By connecting with matter, it has a way of experiencing itself from the inside out. One song, the universe, gets split into an infinite amount of fractal patterns, the peak experience being love for how ridiculous and awesome this is at the same time. I think all of humanity is ready for this one. This art installation can make some of the most detailed cymatic patterns you've ever seen in your life. It is a highly polished metal bowl, and when the light reflects down on it, it reflects the beautiful cymatic patterns on the ceiling. He even shows you how the pattern continues underwater, puts the camera inside of one, and you can see the light bending in the water. This is cymatics, and the study of it is about to change everything. This is the first ever picture of a molecule taken by IBM and published by HuffPost in 2009. This is a cymatic pattern. Just sound traveling through water made that pattern. It looks the same because the patterns resonate down to the quantum level. The distribution of quantum particles lines up exactly with this, which is the theory of everything in mathematics. Both share a symmetry of 26.9 hertz. That pattern is also the perspective used in the Florence Cathedral dome, one of the most famous art pieces of all time. It's a temple ceiling in India. This is one of the most famous synagogues in the world. The boundaries of religion can be bridged by sonic symmetry. This is one of the most famous cathedrals in the world. Art, science, and philosophy used to be one study. This is reflected in the earliest civilizations. They used this as a tool to teach the interconnectedness of all life through sound. They realized this resonates with your DNA. Feeling is epiphany. It's the aha moment. Feeling of understanding is addicting. Everything is connected this way, from the temple architecture to the mantras. Even the smallest details were used as a lesson. We are the only culture that separates our studies. The only way to stop is to bring it back together.
This complex, colorful creature is a math animal, or manimal, if you will. I have made many of these manimals, and they live together in a mathematical zoo that you can go visit right now. Everything about these objects, their shape and color, and the way they change over time, is defined by a mathematical function, like a good old f of x, but much more complicated than that. With the right functions, you can build anything, because
functions describe the world.
Ain't that the truth? I want to call these hyperdimensional functions, which I hope will piss off mathematicians, because that name doesn't really make sense. Strictly speaking, functions do not have dimensionality. Rather, only their inputs and outputs each have their own dimensionality. We're going to have to start with the basics. This is going to be a mathy one, folks. Hold on to your butts. A function is an input-output machine, numbers in, numbers out. A simple function like f of x takes one number in, x, and produces one number out, y. There is a space of possible input values and a space of possible output values, and the function maps between these spaces. If there is one input, then the input has one dimension. If it has two inputs, then it has two dimensions. You can think of it as a 2D coordinate in 2D space. And the same goes for outputs. If you have three outputs, then they make a 3D coordinate in 3D space. Up to this point, we can still visualize these dimensional spaces and the functions that map between them. But when we add 4 or 5 or 600 dimensions, we leave the comfort of low-dimensional space and we enter hyperspace. These are functions in hyperspace. What the hell does that mean? Well, all it means is that these functions have lots of inputs and lots of outputs, specifically more than 3 on either end. The goal of this video is to maximize dimensionality and pack as many inputs and outputs into a function while still being able to visualize it, to see it, to play with it, and to understand it. To do this, I've made a little web toy that you can go play with and build these hyperdimensional functions yourself. It is basically Desmos on crack. We will play with this more later, but for now, let's build up our intuitions. Visualizing a function means that you are able to see all of its inputs and all of their corresponding outputs, or at least a big chunk of inputs and outputs. So take a simple one-in, one-out function, sine of x. We visualize it by first laying out the inputs on the horizontal axis, and then we feed each input into the function one by one, plotting each output as the height of the line at that point. Now you can see every input mapped to each of their corresponding outputs as a series of xy coordinates. We have visualized sine of x. Now say you want to add a second output, a 1 to 2 function. This means that we need to have a second equation that shares the same input, the same variable x, as the first equation. We'll make this one cosine of x. So now for each one input x, there are two outputs, y1 and y2. How do we visualize this? Well, first, understand that there is no single correct way to visualize a function. There are many different approaches we can take, and some might be better or worse for different purposes. For instance, we could simply show the second output as a second line on the same graph, one line for each output. I don't love this approach because they seem totally disconnected, they may as well be different functions, so instead, let's use a parametric function. To do this, first let's rename our variables. The input should be something arbitrary, let's call it u, and so we can rename the outputs to x and y. We will plot these two outputs as 2D coordinates in 2D space, and we will feed in values of u from 0 to 2 pi. This makes a circle. The input u is no longer the x-axis, but rather an arbitrary range of values. You can think of the set of inputs as a one-dimensional line, where each individual input is the length of the line at that point. We then feed the whole line into the function, which transforms it in 2D space, mapping it out point by point. Pretty cool. Now, what if we have 3 outputs? That means we have a third equation, let's say u over 8, which outputs a third value that we'll call z. Ask yourself, how can we visualize this? Well, 3 outputs makes a 3D coordinate, so we can just plot it out in 3D space. We now have a 3D line, which forms a kind of spring. We can extend the spring out further by increasing the range of u beyond 2 pi. Neato. And what if we add a fourth output? Well, we've reached our limit for now, but later we will find a way around it. First, let's take a step back from adding outputs and focus on adding more inputs. In a sense, all functions are parametric functions because all inputs are parameters. They are just arbitrary values in some given range. Whether you call the input x or u, it's just a value, in this case constrained between positive and negative 4 pi, or the range that happens to fit on the screen. The only difference is in how it's visualized. Here, the input is included as a spatial coordinate in the final line, the x-coordinate. With a parametric function, only the outputs are treated as coordinates located in actual space. The input is merely the length of the line. So let's try adding a new input or parameter, which we will call v. V is a new variable in our equation. We will include it by multiplying by cosine v. For clarity, when you add new inputs, you add new variables. When you add new outputs, you add new equations. For now, we're sticking with one output. With 2 inputs, our input space is not just a line, it is a 2-dimensional plane representing all possible combinations of u and v. When we constrain the ranges of our uv parameters, we see it as a rectangle in this 2D space. To see the output values, let's put the 2D plane in 3D space and visualize the output as the height of the plane at each point. Each uv coordinate has its own corresponding z coordinate. Nice. Alright, now we can take our previous function with 3 outputs and combine it with this new system of 2 inputs to create a 2 in, 3 out function. That means 2 variables and 3 equations. We'll use the function that defines a sphere. Each uv coordinate on the uv plane maps to an xyz coordinate in 3D space, and point by point we can construct a full 3-dimensional surface. This is a parametric surface. The UV parameters again do not reflect absolute locations in 3D space, but rather locations on the surface itself, the length and width of the original plane. Generally, parametric functions can be thought of as taking in some object from input space, in this case a plane, and contorting it in output space. This lets us visualize a total of 5 dimensions, u, v, x, y, and z, for each point on the surface in a fairly intuitive way. But we can do more. Let's consider an alternative way of visualizing the same function. Rather than outputting spatial xyz coordinates, we can instead output color values in the form of red, green, and blue, or RGB. So we can color each point on our uv square using that same sphere function. This is another way to visualize a sphere. It doesn't look like a sphere, but it is mathematically identical. Except in one important way, which is that the color values must be constrained between 0 and 1, so I've scaled and shifted the values into that range. This technique of mapping coordinates to colors is known as a UV map in computer graphics. Now for the fun part. We can combine the outputs XYZ and RGB into the same function to have a total of 6 outputs. To visualize it, we simply use this colored plane as the parametric surface in 3D space. The color values can follow a totally different set of equations with their own independent logic. Output space is now 6-dimensional. We have officially entered hyperspace, and yet we can still easily visualize it. We can also squeeze in one more output color dimension, A, for transparency, RGBA. Transparency is a little glitchy with the software that I'm using, and it can destroy other color values, but it is still useful. That's 7 output dimensions. Not bad. There are still more things we could do to pack more outputs into this function, like using vector fields, but that gets really messy and computationally expensive, so 7 is the most outputs that we'll have in this video. How about adding more inputs? With 2 inputs, U and V, our input object is a UV plane. We can add a third input dimension called W to form a 3D cube as our input object. Or, well, really a volume. Mapping UVW to XYZ coordinates like before would give us a parametric volume, not a surface. Unfortunately, this is visually harder to understand. You can never quite see what's going on inside the volume, and it's also computationally expensive and not well supported by the software I'm using. This rendering is actually just a series of surfaces stacked on top of each other, which hints at a better solution to this problem. To build up to a higher dimension, you must make an infinite stack of slices of the previous dimension. An infinite stack of points makes a line. An infinite stack of lines makes a plane. An infinite stack of planes makes a cube. And an infinite stack of cubes makes a hypercube. Stacks of slices of stacks of slices. And the same goes for functions. A function with one input forms a single line. 2 inputs form a stack of lines, a surface. However, rather than visualizing the entire surface all at once, we can instead view a single slice of that surface in a lower dimension, one line at a time. We do this by holding one variable, v, fixed as a constant value, and we treat only u as the true variable for the current line. We can then walk through different values of v, which changes the line over time. We slide across the surface slice by slice, and in doing so, we get a pretty good image of what the surface looks like, even though we don't see it all at once. And this is how we will stuff more inputs into our already stuffed function. We will spread it out over time. We will add a third input variable t for time, along with the spatial inputs u and v. This is space-time. This is that same function for a volumetric ball that we saw earlier, but at the moment we are only looking at one slice of the volume for one specific value of t. As we slide through different values of t, we slide through many different slices of that function and watch it evolve over time. And remember, the surface does not need to be flat. Here's another function that makes a flower that blooms over time. Its definition is much more complex, but it doesn't really matter. It still only has u, v, and t as inputs, and we can scroll through time in just the same way that you can scrub through a YouTube video. Even though you only see one frame at a time, you still get a pretty good picture of what the whole thing looks like. You could, by the way, use this same technique to visualize output dimensions as well, where you view only a single slice of output space. But this is significantly harder to do for reasons that I won't explain in this video, maybe in a follow-up. With 3 inputs and 7 outputs, we can construct some very complex, colorful functions that evolve over time. Let's take a moment to look over this website. Again, you can go play with this right now. It is basically just Desmos 3D or GeoGebra, but a bit more programmer friendly with a focus on constructing a single, very complex function. This here is the actual function definition. It is a piece of JavaScript code. It defines a single JavaScript function called surface, which takes an input object called input and returns a similar output object. Input is a map, and you can get parameter values from it with input.u or input.v or t or whatever you name your extra parameters. The surface function should then return an output object, another map, that expects values for x, y, z, r, g, b, and a. So this one function defines how those inputs are translated to outputs, and you can write whatever code you want in here. The input parameters are defined up here. U and V are always available, and you can set their ranges and their resolution, i.e. the number
Humanity has always been in search of patterns. They make us feel comfortable, they give us meaning. Whether they be in the deepest, most conceptually difficult topics like string theory and quantum mechanics, or even in simple things like the behavior of the person we're talking to. We love to seek patterns, and do so sometimes against our better judgment. Nature and mathematics are no exception to that list when it comes to pattern seeking. In fact, it's at the forefront of it. We've evolved to notice patterns and be alerted when something isn't right. One of these so-called patterns that has fascinated mathematicians and individuals alike for centuries is the golden ratio. Also known by the Greek letter phi, it can be defined by taking a line and breaking it into 2 separate pieces. If the ratio between these 2 new portions is the same as the ratio between the original line and the now larger piece, the portions are said to satisfy the golden ratio. The value that satisfies this equation is roughly 1.618. It's an irrational number, meaning we can't represent it using the ratio of 2 whole numbers. In fact, we can't even write the number fully. It's unending. It's effectively the same as pi in that regard, and so we use the dots to represent the non-terminating nature of this number. But what makes this ratio so golden? The golden part of the name is rather modern. The more original name that was given to this ratio was the divine proportion, and right away, you can see that the term implies some sort of divinity, an extraordinary property that people must have noticed when they were dealing with this number. To further explain this fascination, we should begin by dividing the fascination into two parts: mathematics and aesthetics. The golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence appear in nature every day, and arguably the strongest evidence of goldenness in the golden ratio is in the floral arrangement of seeds. Take this for example. If you were a sunflower, how much of a turn would you make before you made a new seed? It's a weird question, but it's an important one. If you don't make a turn at all, will you just continue making a straight line of seeds? That's kind of boring. If you make half a turn, or a 180-degree turn each time, well, now you have a line of seeds, but in opposite directions. 120 degrees gives you 3 lines, 144 degrees gives you 5 lines. There should exist some angle, some number of turns that, if properly executed, produces a pattern of seeds that is closely packed together with no gaps between them. Something like this. This seems more natural to nature, right? The number of turns needed to produce a spiral design like this is, well, the golden ratio. One seed placed every 1.618 turns, or every 137.5 degrees. This is known as the golden angle, and it is seen throughout all of nature. The idea is to arrange seeds in a way that can maximize the sunlight and rain that they receive, so that the genetic material can successfully be passed on to the next generation. If you don't do this efficiently, evolution won't be very kind to you. If you pack in the seeds too tightly, all the seeds won't get the nutrients they need. If you pack them too sparsely, you're just wasting space. This happens with not only sunflower seeds, but in plant leaves, tree branches, and even more. In fact, it goes even deeper. If you were to count the number of spiral arms in both directions, left and right, you'll find that they aren't equal. However, they will both always be Fibonacci numbers. The higher and higher the numbers go, the closer and closer the ratio between them approaches phi. The beautiful spirals that result are purely a creation of nature. These spirals are consistent across different flower types, and even the number of petals seem to be related to the golden ratio. The sunflower example is particularly interesting because it actually ties the aesthetic element of the golden ratio to the mathematics behind it. There's a reason why the golden ratio is used in flowers, and any other value doesn't seem to work very well. But what does that really tell us about the underlying and possibly grand design of the universe? We're all somewhat familiar with the aesthetic elements of the divine proportion. The idea is that visually pleasing faces tend to have proportions that are somewhat close to the golden ratio. The closer you are to it, the more beautiful your face should be. This inclination of harmony extends to the rest of the body as well, with many claiming that Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man demonstrates that the human body owes its beauty to the golden ratio. The phenomenon also has its place in architecture, with claims thrown around that structures as old as the pyramids of Egypt are in some way, shape, or form inspired by the golden ratio. Except for the fact that there's hardly any evidence that the Egyptians even knew this ratio existed. All of these beliefs contributed to the idea of the golden ratio and made it what it is today. The mathematical beauty is undeniable. It's proven. However, it's generally hard to verify any of these claims regarding its aesthetic purpose in our lives. For one, it's not sufficient for a structure to just have the golden ratio somewhere. It must be meaningfully incorporated and be the result of someone's conscious or subconscious choice. But what does meaningful incorporation entail? Why would you choose the ratio of, say, this pillar with that one and not with another? Then there's questions of measurement. Oftentimes, you see pictures thrown around the internet with a famous celebrity's face with random lines drawn on them that claim to satisfy the divine proportion. Long story short, they're reaching pretty hard. Without proper definitions of the facial features they're referring to, like what a cheekbone is, where it starts and ends, and so on, there's basically no scientifically verifiable structure to what they're claiming. Even if you do find that a certain arrangement and placement of measurements do wind up representing the golden ratio very well, it's never quite exactly that. Despite these claims, however, one could still argue about the idea of facial beauty and the importance of the golden ratio in it. All that matters is our perception of something. If the ratio of some facial feature is close enough to the golden ratio, so much so that we're unable to distinguish it from the actual ratio itself, and we find it pleasing, wouldn't you say that the aesthetic element of the golden ratio is justified? To investigate this point,
Imagine if there was a perfect number, a single number so flawless it formed the basis for all art and music, a number so important that it could be used across the disciplines of mathematics and physics, and a number so profoundly purposeful that the natural world and the universe would bend to its whims. That number is 1.618034. So let's find out why it's so important. At number 5, an explanation. The Fibonacci sequence is a string of numbers that begins with 0 and 1, which can be extended infinitely by adding up any two consecutive numbers to find the next in the sequence. When we add 0 and 1, we get 1, which is the third Fibonacci number. Then we add 1 and 1 to obtain our fourth Fibonacci number, which is 2. And if we continue with this elementary exercise, in addition, we get the numbers 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, etc., in a pattern that can be extended all the way to infinity. The sequence was introduced to the West in 1202 by Leonardo of Pisa, also known as Fibonacci, although it had already been identified by Indian mathematicians over 1,000 years beforehand. But this guy from Pisa shouted first, so he gets to name it after himself. That's just how things work. As the world began to develop its understanding of mathematics, we soon realized this string of digits was of fundamental importance, and today we apply this knowledge in all manner of practical ways. Search algorithms, stock trading, gambling odds all make use of the Fibonacci sequence. But the way in which you have most likely encountered it is via the mysterious golden ratio, which appears in more random stuff than MSG and Jesse Hyman combined. At 4, the golden ratio. The golden ratio is a mathematical term used to describe the relationship of two figures, whereby the numbers seem to be in some form of complementary ratio. If you have a number A and a lower number B, then the two are in the golden ratio if the ratio between A versus B is similar to the ratio between the sum of A plus B versus A. The Greek letter ascribed to this ratio is phi, and its value was contracted to 1.618034. Basically, anything which comes close to this value in terms of its ratio is said to be perfectly proportioned. For example, a rectangle that measures 12.94 by 8 centimeters is in the golden ratio, because 12.94
My bad. No wonder. You couldn't hear me. Okay. Yeah, I got you. Let me set this new live up. See how this goes. Just in VR chat. If you guys are down. Yeah. I'll be right back. Yeah, I just wanted to show a little bit of some of this stuff. So yeah, it was 100 minutes, an hour and 40 minutes. Yeah, so we went through, what was it? Cymatics, golden ratio, what else? Fibonacci, all that stuff. Yeah. Good shit. Shouts to LT. LT was in the building. Let's see if my boy's still alive right now. We'll see what's up. Let me get the headset ready. See if we can do it and do another live stream. Yeah. Thank you. Get the likes up. I'll see you in a little bit.